Hi guys, it's Steffi from the Novelty Corner and welcome back to my channel and welcome to another Books Beside My Bed video. For those of you who are new here, I film one of these every week where I wrap up the last 7 days worth of reading. And for those who are very familiar with the series, welcome back. This is my reading week from the 15th until the 22nd of February. I had a much needed boost in my reading this week. I was reading the books that Beck challenged me to read this week, so you're going to hear all about them. There were 5 books in total. And I even managed to squeeze in an extra one, so I read 6 books this week, 3 of which fit the adult category, 1 YA book and 2 middle grade books. I read 2,159 pages and my yearly reading total is up to 54 books. The first book that I read this week was The Art of Racing in the Rain by Garth Steen. This was a 2009 release from HarperCollins and I gave it 2.5 out of 5 stars. It is the story of a dog called Enzo and it's told from the dog's perspective, which makes it really quite unique, and his life with his human Dennis, who is a race car driver who eventually, after adopting Enzo as a puppy, meets and marries Eve, and then they both have a daughter called Zoe, and then they experience quite a tragic illness and loss within the family, and we get all of this from the perspective of Enzo. And of course, being a dog, it's a very unique perspective. It's kind of weird in a way, but it was also strangely endearing and I did enjoy reading it. And, you know, having the perspective of a dog sort of makes you question how much animals really do know and pay attention to what's going on around them. So yeah, this was a really interesting read and one that I'm glad that Beck recommended because otherwise I would not have read it. Then I read Stormbreaker by Alex Horowitz. This is book 1 in the Alex Rider series. It was published in 2015 by Walker Books. I gave this one 3.5 out of 5 stars as well. This is a middle grade adventure novel or adventure mystery novel, and it follows Alex Rider, who is recruited by MI6 after the death of his uncle who did work for MI6. He is sent in to finish a job that his uncle was unable to complete, which is to investigate a mysterious new advanced computer system that is about to be sent out to all the schools in London. MI6 believes that something fishy is going on, and so Alex is sent in to uncover it, and it is a action-packed middle-grade story, perfect for those kids who really like those fast-moving action stories, and it was fun. It's been a book that I've known about for a long time and I hadn't read, so I'm glad that I have now. Then I read The Recruit by Robert Muchamore. This is book 1 in the Cherub series. This is very similar in theme along the lines of Stormbreaker in that it is about kids being recruited for spy agencies, and this is a 2004 release from Hodder Children's Books and I gave this one 3.5 out of 5 stars. In this book we follow James, who ends up in a children's home, and from there he sort of falls in with a gang and is then recruited to work for this spy agency, Cherub, and is sent out on a mission to stop a terrorist. And I think it's more along the lines of eco-terrorism. This one was kind of fun because you do get a lot more in the way of the spy school element, which is accelerated for James because he needs to be sent out on this mission. A bit like Stormbreaker, it was a fun middle grade adventure story. It's very fast paced and action packed. There are definitely kids I know who would love this book. Next I read an Absolutely Remarkable Thing by Hank Green. This was a 2018 release from Trapeze and I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. Everyone and their mother knows about this book because there was a lot of hype surrounding it when it was released because it's Hank Green and he's awesome and wonderful, and I had always been interested in reading it, but I was a little bit apprehensive because, you know, famous people writing books. I don't know, it just stuck in my head, but I'm glad that I read it. It is the story of April May, who is sort of trying to find her way as an adult in the world. She's studying and she's trying to work and she's trying to make a living for herself. And one night at about 3 a.m, as she's attempting to go home, she stumbles across the first Carl. Carl is a gigantic robot statue that just appears in the middle of the street, and being an arts student and very intrigued by things of this nature, April decides that she's going to recruit her friend Andy to help her film a video for social media about Carl. Her video takes off and she is suddenly thrust into the spotlight and fame and all of the things that go along with it. It is revealed that there are a whole lot of Carls that appeared all over the world simultaneously. No one really knows what they are, where they came from, who created them, and, you know, the potential for it to be alien. April May finds her inextricably linked with this phenomenon and everything that happens, and she gets pulled further and further into sort of this social media fame, popularity thing. I have to say April May is not a likable character at all. In fact, I liked everything in the story except April May, but I can appreciate why she was the way that she was and the intent behind a character like her. She makes decisions that most people would probably question as being morally questionable. I didn't want to use question twice, but I can't help it. It's just the way that it came out. And it shows in the way she changes as a person and the way her relationships with other people change. But yeah, it was an interesting and fascinating book, and I think Hank Green did a great job. Even though I didn't like April May, I still wanted to read the story and find out what was going to happen, so I know that's a sign of a good book. I also read Queenslayer by Sebastian de Castell. This was the 5th and final book that Beck had recommended to me. All the others were the recommendations as well. This is book 5 in the Spellslinger series. It was a 2019 release from Hotkey. I gave this 4 out of 5 stars. This is a young adult fantasy series that I do really enjoy because it's just a little bit different. So even though it's got the elements of high fantasy and a really intricate magic system, it's very easy to read, and it's very easy to fall back into it after months and months of not reading books in the series. And there is one final book in the series that I haven't read. I might need to go and find it, Crownbreaker. I'm also obsessed with the book covers for every book in the series, so every time I question, well, do I really want to hold on to it? Because I probably don't think I'll reread the series at any point, but I really love the covers of these books, and aesthetically they please me greatly. I digress. This is book 5 in the series, and it follows Kellen, who is an outcast from his own people, the Jantep, who practice very intricate forms of magic because he is cursed with the Shadow Black, which is a marking on his face that basically means he's been marked to go mad eventually. And so he's escaped his family. By Queenslayer, he's been on the run for 2 years. He's accompanied by his squirrel cat business partner, who is just delightful and bloodthirsty and fantastic. Kellen has just recently survived a duel, but finds himself being arrested after inadvertently getting blood on the Darriman flag, which is a threat of war. And so he finds himself being dragged before the Queen, who is an 11-year-old girl. He's convinced he's going to be killed for treason, and yet he suddenly finds himself pulled into the path of this very young queen and a court intrigue plot that is playing out against her. It was just really fun, and Kellen continues to grow in each of the books, and he's a character that you really grow to love. Even though he makes really stupid decisions at times, he's just a very likable character. The last book that I read this week was My Darling Duke by Stacey Reid. This is a historical romance book that I received in my Bay Crate box. It is a 2020 release from Entangled. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. This was just delightfully fun and a kind of nice reprieve from having to do lots of heavy thinking like in the last couple of books, because this one was just so easy to read. I read it in a couple of hours on the couch, and I don't regret the time spent doing that. It is the first book in the Sinful Wallflower series, and it follows Kitty, who is 23 years old, has been out in society for 4 years and has yet to have any serious prospects for marriage. Basically now people are ignoring her because she's old. Yes, that's depressing. She and her group of friends who are also around her age and also sort of down on their luck in terms of marriage proposals decide that instead of waiting for society to fix their problems, they're going to go out and they're going to take what they want, even if it means being sinful. And in Kitty's case, this means she concocts a plan to pretend to be the fiancé of the mysterious Duke of Thornton, who has not been seen in society for many years. He had a reputation before as being a bit of a rake and sort of the darling of society until he disappeared, and no one really knows why and where he is. She hatches this plan, announces their engagement via the newspaper, and then begins to benefit from this connection. I should say she's not doing it for herself, she's actually doing it for her sisters who are younger than her and who won't have any serious marriage prospects if she herself doesn't land a strong marriage. So she's only planning to maintain the fake engagement for a couple of months until her sisters are engaged or married, and then she's going to drop the ruse, and then she'll officially be ruined in society, but her sisters will be fine. So it's a very sort of noble quest on her part. That is until the actual Duke of Thornton, Alexander Masters, actually hears about this fake engagement and becomes very intrigued. And instead of being angry, he's intrigued and perplexed, and he wants to know more about this woman who is so brazen to announce a fake engagement. So he comes to visit her, she's very shocked by this, and then he has a proposal for her that she become his friend and he'll maintain the ruse as long as she's interesting and intriguing for him. This culminates in her visiting his estate, meeting his sister Penny, who is just adorable, and we discover that the reason that Alexander has not been in society is because he was injured quite significantly when his family's house caught on fire, and he rescued his sister from a burning room, and so he has burns and he lives in constant pain. He's kept himself away from society because of the reaction they had to his injury, because he was told he would never walk again, and he is scarred. Kitty and Alexander discover that they can be quite good friends. They both intrigue and entertain one another, but Alexander is very hesitant to start a relationship, and the story goes from there. It was delightful, it was fun, and I really, really enjoyed it. So those are the books that I read this week. In the comments below, let me know if you have read any of these books or if you're planning on reading them. I hope that wherever you are in the world, you're having a wonderful day. I'll catch you in my next video. Thanks so much for watching. Bye guys.